Hello. It's nice to spend time with you. Wanted to thank you for joining me. My name is Sue, and I thought I would talk a little bit about being in a group and maybe feeling a bit shy, a little bit like a little socially anxious, kind of like how do you deal with that? So, I really believe that board games are the best thing for people who feel a bit anxious, who feel a bit like, "Oh gosh, what do I say to these people and I don't have anyone to talk to." Because when you play a game, you can talk about the game, you can learn about the game, you can have discussions on the side, you can think about what you're going to do next, you can ask questions, and it's something that gives you kind of a guide to something to focus on together. So you don't have to have constant conversation, you don't have to worry about what you're going to say. There's just natural breaks that you can chat and kind of get to know each other a little bit. There's like a shared interest that's already built in because you immediately have a common interest with other people in the group. So it's kind of easy to connect. Usually you realize that, hey, we love the same video games that we play. We used to play the same, I don't know, we used to watch the same anime or, that kind of thing. And it just sort of makes you feel like, yeah, I feel understood here. I feel like I can be myself. I really recommend joining a board game group or starting one yourself. It's very low pressure. It's not like a bar or like a party. Board game sessions are kind of smaller, more intimate, and you don't have to talk to everybody. You could just talk to the people who are right with you. It's very like low key, and sometimes it's someone's home or it's like a little cafe or a pub. So it's not as socially, stressful. Uh, Board games also give us a reason to like kind of practice interacting with others. You're taking turns, you're cooperating, you're discussing possible strategies, a little bit of competition, all of that allows for practicing listening skills, reciprocating conversation, reading social cues. It's all good. It just makes you a more powerful communicator if you can kind of read the room and also read the table. The repetition makes it easier over time. So when you join a regular board game group that gets together every week or every couple days, you see the same members consistently. There may be some new people, but it's really nice when you realize you're not the new person anymore and you're helping to make a new person feel comfortable. That's a great feeling. So the familiarity of seeing other people who are happy to see you kind of takes the edge off of the worry and makes socializing so much easier. You can also go with a friend. If it feels safer, you can attend board game meetups with a trusted friend until you get confidence to branch out yourself to interact with others. In any social setting, yep, individual experiences will vary, but for someone looking to socially just increase their activity in a kind of a nerdy, low pressure environment, nerdy in a good way. I totally love nerds so much. A local board game group can be a great fit. Just be sure to find one with a culture that aligns with your goals. So, how can like a meetup help someone who feels socially anxious? There's some ways that a meetup group, meetup.com, meetup.com, are just gatherings of people who have common interests or who love a certain activity, and anybody can sign up who's allowed to join the group. And you show up at different events. And so it's really, that's also a great way to meet people is go to meetups that involve your favorite interests because then the people that you meet chances are they have the same interests and you'll already be more comfortable because you're all kind of like looking at the same things or experiencing the same kind of adventures and it just makes you feel like yeah, I can do this, I can show up. So groups that unite around common interests, like mountain biking or games groups, can take pressure off of like forced socialization and give like an anchor point for interaction. So, just like in my example about being able to focus on a game so you don't have to worry about like making conversation, It's the same kind of thing when you go to a meetup and you all have like shared activity or like in a certain environment. Like, say you're all at having a nice dinner at a restaurant together at a table. You can talk about whether you've been there before or not. You can talk about the menu. You can talk about other restaurants that you love in the area. And it just becomes easier to continue a conversation if you have things to talk about. There's like a range of group types. So you can go to a kind of an introvert friendly meetup, like a book club, a low key event like coffee walks, skills based groups like computers or video games, just different things like that. Skill based groups like AI or programming and just all kinds of interests that you can gather around. There's also high energy things that you can do as well, like exercise or hiking, things like that. So, as you increase confidence, you can absolutely get a bit more adventurous in the groups that you go and try out, go attend different events. Um, you have control over the pace and like the date, the time, in the sense that if you know that Saturday afternoons are a really good time to do things, then you can look and see who's meeting, what groups are meeting on a Saturday afternoon, and then you have a couple of choices to choose from. You get to choose which groups to join and how frequently to attend events based on your comfort level. There's no pressure for like getting into it like right away. So even if you go to like a dance and you want to just sit and just observe and just, look at people and have a little bit of conversation of people at your table, it's really nice that, you don't have to go up and ask someone to dance. You can just kind of like enjoy the ambiance and listen to the music and just have conversation. And that way, if you don't want to dance, you don't have to. There's no pressure. The repeated exposure to the same people is also kind of comforting. If you go to the same meetup, you will have seen a couple of the people before. And usually, when you go to a meetup and you're kind of new, other people really do go out of their way to make you feel comfortable and welcome. And that is such a wonderful feeling to be like, oh, it's so nice to see you. How are you? And, people genuinely happy to see you. It's really, that's like the best feeling. If you can see what's in your schedule. When do you have an evening maybe that you can stay out a bit later? What fits into your life? That's the great thing, is you can kind of look at what's on meetup.com, put in your city, put in what kinds of date ranges, and you can see what events there are for you to choose from and just decide where you want to go. If you take a companion, that's fine. If you want to go to a meetup with someone so that you both enjoy it, or that it feels a bit safer for you, there's nothing wrong with doing that whatsoever. You can totally bring a friend or a family member to a meetup and when you're joining a new group. And it's just really good to be socially kind of exposed to people and situations and communities. Um, if you kind of like try to manage your anxiety and try to just go anyway and just build confidence, it helps you in other social situations, like situations at work, situations in your life that you have to kind of get up a bit of courage to go and attend. So it does help with that. I think it helps to put yourself in situations where you're just a little bit anxious, because when you realize that you're fine and that you're totally comfortable and it's okay and I can handle it now, that's an amazing progression from where you were. So you can kind of screen groups beforehand. You can look and see like in their pictures, if they're all hiking, they usually take a picture of themselves, and then you can kind of see like, is this the kind of group I feel comfortable with? Kind of like, what are they wearing, and is it formal? Is it informal? Does it just look like I can fit in there? You get a chance to sort of get an idea of what people look like in pictures in the meetup group, and then sort of like you can also message people in the meetup group. If you're like a member and you've been accepted into the group, then you could actually, like a couple days before an event, you could say, hey, who's going to go? And people can actually interact with you before the event even happens. So when it gets to the event day, you already know who's kind of going to be there and who you can hang out with. And you don't feel like you're walking into like a group and you're like the only one that, you're feeling shy or whatever. It's kind of nice that Meetup makes it a little bit easier to meet people before you even go to an event. So I think that just, going at your own pace and, but taking a little bit of a chance, taking a little bit of like a venture outside of your comfort zone is really, it's really a good thing. And again, I want to say that there's a certain kind of people, like a certain kind of person that I feel really comfortable with, and that's like people who who love computers and video games and AI and all that. It's so funny that that's the kind of people I really feel most comfortable with. Um, it's so funny because I didn't know that about myself, but I really feel that that's so true. And usually those kinds of people, those interests, they usually show up around board games too. So that's kind of neat. Um, so like if you see a group of like two or three people and they're pretty engaged in a conversation and you don't have anyone to talk to, so you're like, I'm thinking about going over there, but they're already talking to each other. How do you kind of like see whether it's okay to kind of like join the group? So join a conversation when there's two or three people who are already talking in a group. Kind of wait for like a pause, and then you're listening a little bit to what they're talking about. And so something that's on topic, you can ask a question or just say an on topic comment. Just look for a little break in the flow of conversation and kind of smoothly add your voice. Make eye contact and lean in slightly so that they know you want to contribute, and introduce yourself. And once you start speaking, so they know who's joined them. Hi, I'm Sue, and I couldn't help overhearing you talking about whatever it was. If there's laughter or you can relate to what they're saying, you can add, I know what you mean, or that's hilarious. The same thing happened to me once. You can ask an open ended question based on what you overheard to keep things flowing. Where did you see that new movie you're talking about? Compliment the conversation. You're discussing really interesting stuff. Mind if I join you? Make it welcoming. If it's friends you already know, you can use inside jokes or past experiences to smoothly join. Don't force it. If the vibe feels closed off, leave them be and engage another time. The key, and this takes a little bit of practice, is to read social cues, allow for pauses, and contribute value without interrupting too abruptly. Joining a group chat takes tact, but it's doable with care and confidence. So, when you're in a new group setting, here's some tips for reading social cues. It's really important to kind of get better at reading social cues. Observe body language. Are people leaning in, making eye contact, and facing one another? Usually, you want to see where their feet are pointed. If the people have their feet pointed towards each other, it kind of gives you an idea in terms of body language that they're interested, that they're engaged, that this is what they want to, this is the person they want to interact with. So if someone's feet are facing away and they're not looking off into the distance and they're not at all, they don't look engaged at all in the person that's talking to them, that's kind of a good sign that that person is almost looking for an exit and kind of wants to get away from the conversation. So it's kind of funny if you just sort of look in a group of people and see like who's really engaged and like getting a lot out of the conversation and who kind of wishes they could just leave the conversation. So listen for laughter and energetic responses. Are people chuckling, building off each other's ideas, and keeping the energy high? That shows they're connecting well and receptive to interaction. Low energy responses are people just facing away from each other and just looking really bored or disinterest, may signal it's not the right time or moment to interject. Notice who is and who isn't included. You can pick up cues based on who is actively participating versus who is getting talked over or has fallen quiet. Seek opportunities to loop in anyone not fully engaged yet. I think that the person who's sort of on the sideline, who isn't sure if they're really being included or not, it's really nice if someone notices that and then does include them, because you can almost see the feeling of relief and gratitude that is on their face when they know that they're also welcome and that they're included. Pay attention to inside conversations. Groups with shared history may use obscure references or nicknames. This indicates they have closer familiarity, and you'll have to maybe build that familiarity gradually over time. Watch for open ended questions. What do you all think about? Invites broader engagement, whereas closed ended questions may subtly limit who responds. Assess eye contact. If people make frequent eye contact with each other and you, that's usually a positive sign. Little eye contact may mean they're not fully comfortable yet. Start simply by observing social patterns. Over time, picking up on cues will help you navigate new group dynamics smoothly. So, along the same vein, how do I get better at connecting? Here's some tips for helping you to connect better with others. Ask questions. When meeting new people, ask open ended questions to get them talking about themselves. People enjoy talking about their interests and experiences. Listen fully. Give your full attention when others are speaking. Don't just wait for your turn to talk. Reflect back what you hear to show you understand and that you care. You're actually listening. Make eye contact. When appropriate, maintain comfortable eye contact to help build rapport and trust. Remember names if you can. Make it a point to remember people's names and use them in conversation. It makes them feel valued. I try to remember people's kids' names and people's pet names and a little bit about where they're from. And that way people are like, oh, like you're listening. That's great. And they can sort of makes them feel, kind of like you care. That's awesome. Look for common ground. Make it a point to remember people's names and use them. Think about similarities that you have. Do you both love the same team, or do you have an interest that you share? Like I met an author, and he said that he really loves embroidery. And I think that's so amazing because that is such an incredibly artistic, patient, times taking, painstaking thing to do is embroidery. I can't imagine. It just made me feel like, wow, like you value the handmade kind of nature of things that you can create with a needle and thread, and look at the colors and look at the patterns. And I look forward to actually seeing pictures of things that he's done. I'll have to remember to have him bring some things maybe to the show when he visits next. Look for things to focus on. So don't be all distracted and don't be checking your phone, and even having your phone upside down on the table. It's sort of like it's still kind of like it's still there. So people feel less important if you go to a meeting and you all sit down and everyone has their phones out, and like if you turn it over so it's you can't see it, but then when it kind of rings or whatever, you pick it up and look at it and then you put it back down. That's not really like the right thing. It's actually better to silence your phone before you come into the meeting and not even have it visible, because then I'm here for this meeting and not I'm here, but this is more important than you are. That's never true unless it's an emergency that you're being called. But usually it's really polite, I think, to just not have your phone out, if you can possibly do that. So put aside those distractions, right? Be in the moment when meeting someone. Being fully engaged shows you care. Also, follow up. After meeting someone, follow up to build a connection. Send a note or write a quick email or just a quick text. Hey, that was awesome. I was so glad to meet you and looking forward to the next time. Just something like that so that they know that you enjoyed the interaction as well. Notice body language. Reflect others' posture and energy to establish like nonverbal rapport. So if you're noticing that they're, doing certain things, see if you can also kind of like read that and read their energy kind of level. Um, and I just noticed that somebody put, they put how to human. That is hilarious. I don't know who did that, but that's hilarious. I just think that's so funny. I so love the people that work at this station. I cannot even tell you. Smile warmly. A sincere smile goes a long way in making people feel welcomed and comfortable around you. It's amazing, if you just smile, even though inside you're nervous or you're like feeling like, oh God, I don't know what to say, or oh my God, like inside your head, you're like, oh my God, oh my God. And yet, if you smile and kind of just look at someone and connect with your eyes, they could be also feeling nervous and not know what to say or what to do. And so you could literally just laugh about your uncomfortableness and it's okay. And then you kind of go from there. So, with practice, though, connecting can become a natural, enjoyable part of our interactions. Focus on building understanding, and you'll form mutually rewarding bonds. So I feel that, yeah, it's just really, we need to connect, we need to feel like we belong. And it's so important to include others. I remember that's how I felt when I met Jack. I just saw him, he was like one seat over from these other people that were near me. And I just looked over and I said, hey, do you want to sit with us? And I could not have known that that was exactly the right thing to do for him and for me as well, because I wouldn't have had him as my friend. So, really, really glad to include people. And you have no idea, or maybe you do have an idea, what it feels like when you're like on the periphery of a group and you don't really know, like, should I try to join in or, is it going to be okay? And it's just such a relief if one of the people in the group looks at you and says, hey, come join us, because you're like, oh, thank God. So this happened to me too a couple weeks ago when we were all kind of new in a workplace. And there were these two really nice ladies. And I just felt like, I could hang out with those ladies. They look like they're so sweet. And I feel like I'm just like them. And one day at lunchtime, one of them invited me over to their table. And so, we kind of were like inseparable after that. And I'm so glad that they had the kindness to invite me over, because I probably wouldn't have just gone over and like invited myself to sit down. So it's just really sweet. Like in my real life, I actually have had to do some of these things because when I grew up, I was really shy. And I know my kids would say, Mom, you are not shy. But I don't know, like I feel even now, like sometimes if I'm in a situation where it's like a whole bunch of people in a room, I will kind of come in and like hang around the periphery, maybe go towards the back and try to come in as quietly and unobtrusively as possible. And I It just sort of like I like to be able to be quiet and just sort of watch for a while and just sort of like, I guess, read the room and sort of see what's going on, what the energy level is like, and who's in the room, and who would I like to talk to, or who looks like they just be fun to get to know. And that way you can kind of be in the room for a while and then maybe work up your courage a little bit. It's almost like being in high school and asking yourself, like, should I go ask that guy to dance? And it's like, oh my God. It's like it's so crazy to have that feeling, even as an adult, but it's the same feeling. It's like, should I go over there? And it's the nicest thing if they're genuinely happy that you went over and we're like, oh, yeah, we wanted to ask you to come over. We've been watching you for a couple days, and we're really glad that you're in this class too, or we're doing this experience together. So it's such a funny thing to think about what we were like in high school and everything like that. But we'll definitely have like maybe a discussion about high school coming up. Um, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of reinforce, like see how things are going. And you never know, like if you feel like, yeah, I think I could probably join a conversation, or, maybe I should try to go to this new place or this unfamiliar kind of, place or experience, just do it, right? Because you may never have that chance again. And I feel like sometimes if you have like a moment where you're like, should I? And then if you don't, you go home and you're like, "Ah, I should have, you just have this feeling like I really should have gone for it. So, but I'm cheering you on. I'm rooting for you. And I'm really thrilled that, come back and tell me how you overcame fears or joined a new group or did something way out of your comfort zone. I'd love to know. I totally support you. And I hope that it's been fun talking about